What's going on, YouTube? It's okmall. Today we have another guide video ahead. This one's going to be covering my Mahir light armor and heavy shield. But before we begin, if you haven't done so already, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified for any future video content. And before we start covering the build as a whole, I do want to cover a couple of things. This one did hold up well enough through tier 1 and tier 2, even though I didn't have a whole lot of skills available. Because we start off as Mahir, and I will be honest, I'm not going to cover this build with anybody other than Mahir, and there's a reason for it. Because of Mahir's trait that gives him an extra ability point for every 6 points invested into a skill tree. Not more than once, but at least it's an extra point, right? I use that to our advantage to get a lot more skills unlocked at a much quicker pace. Another thing I want to briefly touch on is reputation. The way I recommend doing this is in Osbrook, you're going to want to do all 3 contracts right off the bat. And with each turn in, you're going to turn that contract into the magistrate. Now, keep in mind, the magistrate is the one that gives you more Bryn reputation. The focus is to get Bryn up to Amity as quickly as possible so we can unlock tier 4 gear as quickly as we can. The way I recommend doing this is you do around all 3 contracts in Osbrook, which will lead you down into Bryn. From Bryn, you go to Manshire. And Manshire, again, all 3 contracts, turning the contract into the magistrate to increase our Bryn rep. Do another round of contracts in Osbrook, same idea, turn it into the magistrate, followed by one last contract round in Manshire, all 3 of them, and turning that into the magistrate will increase your Bryn reputation up to Amity. At least it did for me. And then by that time, we can now go down into Bryn, and our goal is to buy brand new gear. When I first bought my gear, I went ahead and I picked up all light armor tier 4 stuff, and as you can tell, some of the stuff got to stay with me, so it's not necessarily a wasted investiture. The Tide gloves, they stayed with us. Captain's headwear stayed with us, and Jaibean's cape stayed with us. So that makes it, when we go to dive into our tier 5 related gear at Bryn Respect, it's not going to be that expensive. So the things I would have purchased would have been a tier 4 sword, tier 4 chest, gloves, tier 4 Jaibean cape. Heck, if you don't have enough money, you can just leave the cape off to the side. You don't need it. If you take down the troll, you get yourself a free cape anyway. Tier 4 here, tier 4 there, and I think a tier 4, I don't remember what boots I got, but yes, tier 4 boots and a tier 4 shield. You should have enough if you were saving your money the entire time. During the early game, you're going to be using medium tier 2 armor and basically all 4 slots here, and I wouldn't buy anything else. Maybe a tier 3 sword, use that for a bit, but for the most part you're going to spend very, very little money, and all the gear that you do use is something you're just going to find out in dungeons, right? Don't waste your money, essentially. Once we got our gear to tier 4, it was time to head to the Rotten Willow. Now, Rotten Willow is the one thing that we do a little bit differently. We change our focus from Bryn reputation to, in this case, Rotten Willow reputation. And the biggest reason for that is so we can get the Rotten Willow up to Amity as soon as possible. This will do a couple of things for us. It unlocks the Manticore quest, and it also unlocks the fence down in Bryn. 2 really good things. Once I was done with that, I went down into Denbray. Now from Denbray, I only knocked out 2 dungeons because I was not going to go into a tier 4 proselyte dungeon with this particular build this early on. Could I have managed it? Probably. If I went with some traps, nets, and stuff like that, I could have got through with it. I didn't want to deal with it. So depending on your confidence level and if you want to dive into there, prepare yourself. Smoke bombs and nets, traps, you get the idea. And I think then to get to Respect, we were really, really close. I had to do another round in Manshire just to bump us over into Respect. But once we're at Respect, the game's basically over with in terms of our gear. It was time to go back down into Bryn and then start buying tier 5 gear. And as you guys can tell, this is our tier 5 loadout. I'll cover it more in detail a little bit later. I just wanted to give you a brief coverage of like what we did and the steps I took to make this build level up over the course of the game. So now with that being said, let's take a quick look at the overall stat layout. We'll talk stats, we'll talk abilities, we'll talk gear more in depth right now. So again, character wise, I'm not going to tell you guys to pick anybody else. Can you? Sure. My guide specifically is covering Mahir because he's giving extra ability points. So you might not be able to make this happen the same way if you choose a different character. Mahir, we went and started with perception. Now Mahir, I'm going to be honest, does not start with very many skills. So for the first couple of levels, Mahir's only going to have access to, I think, athletics and survival. What that means for us is we can't do anything else. Hell, he doesn't even have shields. Could you buy the shield skill from the drunken guy outside of Osbrook's Inn? Sure. Don't worry about it. It's not important. I know it sounds silly when we're a shield build. You're probably like, oh, well, we probably need this. No. What you're going to start off with instead is survival. Get cauterized wounds into first aid and the first 2 level ups. You'll be saving a lot of ability points throughout this run until we get to Manshire. Okay. So keep this in mind. And that leads me into the why we start with perception. There's a couple of reasons for it. I want more accuracy. That's a given. But I also want to unlock Pathfinder as soon as possible. You're talking Pathfinder by level 4. Okay. So keep that in mind. But regardless, I want perception up to 14. Then vitality all the way up to 20. Then we go back into strength up to 15. And once strength at 15, we put this perception up to 15. And then we finish off the rest of the build by putting points into strength. So you can tell I'm probably going to put my strength all the way up to 25 before we hit level 30, or by the time we hit level 30. And that's a really good loadout in my opinion. I think after playing this long enough, I kind of learned where I wanted to put my skills, and it just made sense. Now keep in mind, I kind of have a couple artifacts here that I'm boosted my stats with. We just got super lucky with this. If you get these, freaking use them. 100%, just use them. You'll notice I'm getting an extra 26 health off of this. Health restoration, fortitude. That's from the globe here. We're getting extra weapon damage. So even if I toss that away, a base of like 132 for weapon damage is insane. Plus the negative 10 damage is awesome. So let's just kind of cover this with all the buffs, because I'd have to sleep for a whole day just to get rid of this stuff. And that's not going to be possible. We have main hand weapon damage right now with the build as is at 41. Again, inflated stats. Keep that in mind. I'll even show you everything we have here. Highlight over all of this, so you have an idea what's being increased, what's not being increased. Pause the video, do what you gotta do. Coming on down at 147% weapon damage, body part of 15, armor of 30 damage, 22 armor penetration, 98.5 accuracy, 12 crit, 66 crit efficiency, 24.5 base counter, -5 skill energy costs at 98.5 ability energy cost, 65.5% cooldowns, super low. Plus with the tactical advantage, you can take another 20% off of that for anything that's a maneuver or stance. We have bleed chance on our weapon. And I also got life drain on our weapon. I would recommend getting this. Health at 178 with resto at 23.5. Healing efficiencies at 110. Energy at 130 with 56% energy resto, which is pretty high. Now, the light armor in this heavy shield combo worked out very well in my opinion. We have protections of 7. And our block chance at 75.5. Keep in mind, strength increases block chance and block power, respectively. So we get more block chance, more block power. And our vitality increases our block power recovery. The only problem with it is it's like 5%. So we're getting 10% off of there. But then our shield takes away 25%. So it offsets us a wee bit. And there's a reason that we want to go into a little bit more block power recovery base here, because you can never go below 1%, but technically speaking, you are below 1%. And then you just end up using skills like breakthrough to increase your block power recovery by 10% per enemy hit. Raise shield. Also, I think it's block power recovery or energy resto. Block power recovery for hold the line. I think block power recovery here, and maybe not. But either way, there's ways to recover it, and you'll see that this goes up throughout the previous playthrough. So like if you guys are just starting with this video and you didn't watch my previous videos where we went through the undead dungeon, the human, and the proselyte tier 5s, as well as the manticore and the troll fight, then you're missing out. I would highly recommend going down and checking those videos out. Now, when we can't block, we can still rely a little bit on our dodge. And you'll notice here, I do have elusiveness. So you can always pop elusiveness in between if your dodge is block power is too low. Like you hit 0 or something, but you still want to be able to get an attack that misses. Dive into dodge, slap on some elusive, and then wait for your block power to recover, and then go back into blocking again. Now, control and move res, those held pretty solid with this number here. I could probably get a lot more. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 items are not enchanted. You could increase your move resistance, control resistance even higher, even add a little bit more bleed res if you need to. I didn't get knocked around as much, and I didn't get dazed or stunned often. So this right here held up really well. Hunger resistance 25, pain 15, fatigue 34. You need more than this. You need more than this, chat. We're Mahir, so do the rest of his trait, or the other half of his trait, and go find some places to increase your fatigue resistance, as well as grab the banner from way down yonder, okay, over here in the ocean. You see that little island? Yeah, go down there and grab that up, because you're gonna be burning through your fatigue like crazy. All right, just, you know, keep that in mind. Anyway, damage resistances, it's only because of the Conquest Hills Tapestry do we have it lower than 100% right now. Physical and nature, nothing in magic. That'll cover the stats, and that's how I recommend it, okay? Now, if we look at our abilities, I'm not gonna cover what levels to do them yet, but we'll just kind of briefly cover what I have. Starting with shields, we got the entire shield skill tree unlocked. The biggest ones that are gonna be helpful in this build are gonna be Shield Bash, Breakthrough, and Raise Shield. I think every single one of these is pretty much useful, okay? This one increases our block chance and our maximum block power. Now, I know we have light armor for the dodge. Don't worry about it. If your block gets up to 100% because of this, then you're fine, and you'll swoop in and do shield bashes to keep your block, or your maximum block power recovering, as well as breakthrough to increase the natural block power recovery. Because once you get your block power up to like a suit, here, I'll show you. So let's just say block power at this level, it's a little bit much. It's 99.5 and 99. This here will be recovering 35%. Just by using it once, we're recovering 35 block power, okay? And if you use a breakthrough on one enemy, we're up to 14% block power recovery, okay? So that's 14 out of that 100 plus this. We're essentially halfway to recovering our full block power with just one attack. Now, if you could hit both of these enemies, let's say there's multiple enemies side by side, 3 at most, obviously, then you're going to get even more block power recovery, okay? So the moment that you have a high block power, block chance, you're just going to be recovering like crazy. Plus, we have passives. Using the weapons, the ability tree's skills will grant us more weapon damage encounter for 5 turns, and damage encounters will recover our block power, or give us 5% block power recovery. Wait, what? Damage encounters replenish 5% max block power. Okay, not recovery, but just recovering 5%. Then we have full block to replenish maximum energy, reduces ability trees cooldowns by 1. That's a really good one too. Partial blocks grant -5 damage taken for 6 turns. We got grants 3% block power recovery for 6 turns for each adjacent enemy. And then receiving hits grants energy resto for 6 turns. Both of these stacking up to 5 times. And then retaliation, so that way breakthrough and shield bash are increased by 50% damage and increase their crit by half. And then using these skills applies the target with -10 accuracy, -10 counter, and lower weapon damage, stacking twice. So it's very easy to maintain a low cooldown with these. Especially when you have like the offensive tactics and you start leading into this. But I would recommend switching between offensive and defensives throughout your fights, because both of these work really, really well with this build, okay? Moving on to the next skill tree that we did, Warfare. Now in Warfare, you're gonna be basically, by the first time you hit into Bryn, so long as you have the money for the book right off the bat, you're gonna be buying the Warfare skill tree. and you're going to start diving down into the warfare skill tree. Don't worry about the right on target, into finisher, into armor crusher. This is kind of an afterthought, comes much later in the build. I don't have the room in the time to be putting points into these a little bit earlier in the build. This is a late game thing, okay? But for the most part, you're just gonna go straight on down here. And the beautiful thing about doing this, because we're here, is once you get 6 points in here, we get an extra point. So by the time you get down to tactical advantage, that's a free skill point or ability point that you can put somewhere else. Athletics, the same idea. We're gonna go all the way down into adrenaline rush and peak performance. This one unlocked by level 22. You can't unlock it any earlier than that unless you get lucky and you find a tier 4 book. But level 22 is when this one's gonna happen. But once you get these 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you get another ability point for free. And the same thing happens for the shields. Once you get 6 points in here, you get another ability point for free. So just keep that in mind. That's why we're doing this. And then I've only put 6 points into survival, so we get an extra ability point for free. The first couple will end up being here, and then everything else just kind of gets filled in as we go. So that's a look at all these skills. If you look at my hotbar, you'll notice we got the attacking one, the defense ones, finisher. We got most of my athletics ones here with sudden lunge, elusive, adrenaline rush, dash, and then that will to survive. And don't worry about these other ones. It's a copy of the other two. But yeah, that's basically all of the abilities. We'll touch on it at the end of the video in terms of what levels to get what. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten. Next up would be gear. As you can tell, it's pretty straightforward. This one here was probably the hardest piece of gear to find. I could find tier 4 and tier 5 medium stuff, but I reset it like 10 times and I couldn't find this. Eventually, like after level 25, 23, I don't know what level it was, we finally got down to Brid and found it. So we bought this. It's huge, right? Gives us move resistance, control res. Does decrease our dodge by 20, but so did the tier 4 shield. But we gained 45 block chance, 50 block power. That block power recovery is where a lot of these skills come into play. Crit avoidance of 13. And then we lose 20 energy and 4 energy resto, which, as you guys can see when we last looked at our stats here, it doesn't matter. Not at all. And we usually maintain higher than 30 or higher than 50% energy, which allows that athletics skill, the peak performance to stay active basically all the time. I haven't been struggling with this. I've been struggling with fatigue, just not energy. So we ended up going with a Templar sword, and I got this enchanted with Life Drain, and I recommend you guys do the same. It just helps keep us alive a little bit longer. But this one comes with that accuracy, which again, it's nice to get a little bit extra accuracy here, as well as -1 fumble. And you can tell with all the things I have equipped, fumble's not an issue. Block chance of 10, and then bleed chance. We don't get any block power from this, but I like the accuracy. And then we have a fencer doublet. We went for the thing that came with the highest amount of dodge. Plus, this one comes with block chance and weapon damage on top of counter. So those are really good things to have with this build. It's not the best in the way of protections, but it does give us more damage and more block. We went with Tide Gloves because of the extra fumble reduction, plus crit efficiency. When we do crit, it's pretty good. Bleed, resistance, physical, you get the idea. I went with 2 silver emerald rings here. Also, further decreasing that fumble chance. -3 times that by 2. It's great. So you get -6 fumble chance, 12 health off of that. 2 health restoration, and 10 healing efficiency. Moving on to the pendants, we don't need to reduce our fumble any longer, so let's go ahead and increase our accuracy, which is a good thing since we're not full, we're not over 100% accuracy here. But this one gives us accuracy, energy resto, skill energy cost reduction, and cooldown reduction. Then we have the boots that have the highest dodge, which is going to be the Mage Hunter boots. This one's just good protections all around. Plus, we also reduce fumble by 2. Gain 5 counter chance, and that extra 10% dodge. Our belts, we went for the aristocrat belt. It gives us extra dodge, 6%, block power recovery of 5, and then -3 cooldowns on top of 4 counter chance. Until we get something better, it's always going to be the Captain's Headwear for dodge, crit chance, crit efficiency, that control res, very little control res, but it still has it. And then lastly was the Jibeen Cape. I found this one to be the better one, because of the skill energy cost reduction, the crit chance, the counter, some bleed, some physical, some nature resistance. And then we already talked about the giant big boy shield here. That's what my loadout looks like. It's like I said, pretty good. I liked it. I like this one a lot. So now that we've covered everything there, let's go ahead and look at the breakdown of when to get what skills and at what level, when to hold them and when to spend them. All right, y'all, here we have a breakdown of every single ability tree. And you'll notice there's a couple of copies of numbers. And I have this broke down based on each level up, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not based on your stat points. It's literally, this is this level, this is that level, okay? So to begin with, as Mahir, the only skill trees that we have unlocked are going to be athletics and survival. I do not have access to warfare. I do not have access to shields. You could, I guess, walk all the way down to Manshire and buy the warfare skill trees, or talk with the drunken guy outside of Osbrook and get shields unlocked. I don't recommend doing that and spending the extra money, okay? We're trying to save money to buy followers and save money to buy gear and such like that. So don't go down there early. We can always unlock the warfare tree once we get down to Manshire. I personally didn't have an issue going through the first few dungeons. In fact, I just used a two-handed mace, as odd as that sounds, to get me through the first round of the Osbrook contracts. I did that specifically just so we could have a weapon that deals damage, because two-handed weapons deal a ton of damage early on, and no tier 1 enemy can really fight you off with that. Now, having said that, level 1, I just went ahead, let's go ahead and get Cauterized Wounds. It's unlocked already. By level 2, this right here will be unlocked. Again, we're putting points into perception, so keep that in mind. But level 1, level 2, at level 3, we're skipping it. You're going to hold that ability point. Like by level 4, we're gonna get Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder a lot. It helps us deal additional damage to the enemies, and it helps us know exactly where they are located. Now by level 5, we have 3 skill points to spend, and typically speaking, this is the first time you're gonna actually be able to enter into Manshire. I'm usually level 4 to level 5 by the time I hit Manshire, and I think warfare is taught by the governor. And it's going to be about 250 gold. So long as you have about 250 gold, you can now unlock warfare. You'll be able to get seize the initiative. We got our first attacking skill. You have opportune moments. And then you'll have, I can't remember what the name of this is, but yes, this skill here, this little passive, because that's going to lead us into offensive tactics and defensive tactics. 2 really good skills. One's damaging, one's defensive. From level 5, we go to level 6. Well, I like level 6 because it's going to lead us into dash, and dash is lovely to have when you're on a permadeath run. Plus, we're already planning on going deep into athletics, so we have to do this eventually. May as well do it now. After level 6, we're going to hold the skill point from level 7, level 8, and level 9, and then by level 10, we're going to be dropping 4 skill points all at once. Okay, I wasn't lying when I said we're holding ability points. So we're going to have 4 of them by level 10. So with that being said, we're putting 1 point into dash, 1 point into defensive, 1 point into offensive. And then over here, I started to second guess myself after the fact. But I've already saved this file. So you could, instead of doing this passive here, go for the active skill. And I think the active skill would be a little bit better for us, because by this time we're either using a medium or a heavy shield, or right around level 12 anyway. So having a little additional damage from breakthrough into shield bash would probably be a lot better. So let's take this and go 10 on breakthrough, 11 on shield bash, and then level 12 would be this passive here. Okay, so just let's do it that way. I think it's gonna be better for us overall. But anyway, that covers the 10, 11, and 12 skills. By level 13, it's time to go into tactical advantage. And now, again, we're Mahir, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 skill points later, we get a free one. And I marked that with a 13F. That's our free skill point, okay? By level 14, we go into raise shield, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And because I want to get an extra skill point, we're gonna go down and get this passive here. This is at level 15, okay? And that brings us all the way over to another defensive maneuver. This one's gonna be elusiveness. That's going to be our free skill point. Now from 15, we go to level 16, which brings me over here. Okay, this will unlock for free We can't get it any earlier unless you find a tier 3 book. Now, this one just makes shield bash and breakthrough hit harder. Since most of our damage is going to be through seize the initiative and these shield skills. So 16 is definitely a must. At level 17, we're going to grab up Not This Time, Sudden Lunge, and No Time to Linger. All three of those gives us a free stat point. And since this is the 6th skill point here, it's going to lead us into another free one. I just went ahead and put it into Will to Survive. There was some situations that I found that I think Will to Survive would have been a lot better than taking Hold the Line earlier. So this one, I think, had more weight than Hold the Line. So we're going to grab this one up. From there, I am kind of, you can tell, iffy. Probably either Hold the Line or this move here. Either way, it's one or the other, right? You could start switching it up. I'd probably go for Hold the Line over Ever Vigilant a little earlier, but feel free to make that determination yourself. The only reason why I kind of put it this way is maybe to unlock an extra stat point as soon as we can here. But regardless, probably grab this one at level 20. Level 22, that's when we get another free skill point, which puts us down into grabbing up Adaptability and Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush really helps it. By level 22, this build really starts to kick off and deal massive damage and have immense survivability. So that's when it really starts to be good. 23, this is peak performance, another really good one. And then we can start finishing off the build 24, 25, and 26. That's basically everything. Again, I know I already put some of these and I already saved this file, so I would make a couple of changes here and there. And so it gets a little wishy-washy on what to do. I do still think that the Will to Survive needs to be a little bit earlier. I got this a bit later, and I chose, I think, Ever Vigilant over Will to Survive in one of these dungeons. And yeah, I don't think it was a good idea. The Undead dungeon specifically we went into, because we went into that one a bit early, and it was a terrible experience. This would have been much better. It was a miasma based Undead dungeon too, so tier 5 Undead miasma, whew, terrible. So that covers the build. I hope y'all enjoyed today's build guide. Don't forget that I'm going to have links in the video description for the tier 5 Undead, tier 5 Proselyte, tier 5 Human, the Manticore fight, as well as the Troll fight. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, watch those videos and see how this build rolls out. I think you'll get an idea, experience-wise, what it looks like with this build goes into those dungeons, right? Admittedly, the Undead one was a little bit harder than everything else because we just started to get into our own and start learning the build when we start diving into those harder dungeons. But once we start leveling up, the rest of the dungeons were super easy. And the boss fights were a cakewalk. 100%. I know we're over leveled, but still. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and family, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.